Pasadena Chamber of Commerce is doing quite well. Like everyone, we've had to weather the pandemic and make some changes in our operations and our expenses. But we've managed that without losing any staff. Now, that's not to say that we aren't challenged. There are some significant financial issues that we'll have to deal with in the short term, but we are 134 years old, and we fully expect to be serving Pasadena and our business community in the next 134 years as well. Right now, the Chamber is very busy doing everything that we can to ensure stability and prosperity for our members. At the same time, we work to support our local economy and to make certain that our city provides the appropriate growth and development so that we can continue to all flourish. It's not easy, but it's certainly worthwhile. Pasadena is a great city, and we're very pleased to do our part to make it better for our residents, our business, as well as our workforce.
Pasadena has a strong team that looks out after residents, that looks out after its business community. And the proof is in the pudding, as they say. You know, we came through COVID. I said in the midst of COVID that I was confident that this community was one facing a time like no other. And we did. And we proved that this community is resilient. We proved that this community, because of its business community and the employees in all of your businesses, together with our city team at the health department and in every department that kept the wheels turning, came out like no other city did. We came out stronger than we went into the pandemic. I'm confident of that. The pandemic, instead of dividing us and harming us, sure, we took our punches, but like any good fighter, you know, you take a punch, you fall, and you get back up. But I do believe that we came out stronger as a city and as a people. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, because all of you who are part of the business community here in Pasadena should take lots of credit for that. When, you know, the cards were down, you all buckled down together with the people who work for you and ensured that this city kept moving, that our economy was vibrant, that people continued to have employment, that people knew where to go to buy, to eat, to do all of the things that we all missed during the pandemic.
Right now, we're probably not in a recession. If you look at all of the economic data, what it's telling you is, yes, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's certainly a lot of volatility. There's turbulence. But if you look at what the data is saying, it's saying that the economy is actually still expanding right now as we all sit here and enjoy our lunches. Now, there are a lot of headwinds out there, namely inflation. Inflation right now is the biggest problem afflicting the economy today. Inflation's so bad, right? It's running at a 40-year high. It hasn't been since the early 1980s that we've seen price pressures accumulate in the way they have. So unfortunately, because inflation's running at such a high level, that is starting to slow a lot of different parts of the economy, which are technically still in expansion territory, but which are headed towards a downturn. So I have a bunch of slides here. This first slide I'm showing is that we are predicting a downturn to happen in 2023. So as I mentioned before, we're not in a recession right now. If you look at the core parts of the economy, what are those? The consumer spending, business investment, very big parts of the economy, they're still growing. But inflation is such that it's starting to slow those areas. And we got the Federal Reserve zeroed in on tackling this big inflation problem. So what has the Federal Reserve been doing this year? Hiking interest rates, right? Very, very aggressively. Now, why are they doing that, and what's their purpose? It's inflation. The Fed has a mandate, right? They want to promote maximum employment. All right, we got that done, right? The unemployment rate nationally is 3.5%. It's a 50-year low. But inflation, we actually got the most recent inflation data today. Inflation's running over 8% and seems to be moving in the wrong direction, even with all of the interest rate hikes that have happened so far. So there's only one way to really bring down inflation at this point. It's to slow down the economy so people and businesses stop spending money at the same robust rate that they have been recently, right? What happened last year? Last year was a very strong year in terms of economic growth. The country's economy grew almost 6%, which is very seldom do you see our economy grow almost 6%. For context, we average about 2%. So we had a really strong year last year. And in fact, I could argue that a lot of the problems we're seeing right now, the supply chain disruptions, inflation, labor shortages, et cetera, all stem from growing well ahead of where we ought to be growing. So some slowdown was always in the cards. We're never going to grow almost 6%. So we are slowing down, but the Fed wants to slow the economy down so businesses slow or stop spending at that same rate, and hopefully that brings down inflation.
You know, we have a lot of good things going on in Pasadena. We have office, commercial, retail, hotels, autos, research and development. So I'll go through it. I'll just show some of the slides of what's happening, and then we can take some questions afterwards, perhaps. But let's get started. So the first one I want to talk about, go through the office, is the 10 West Walnut project. This is the former Parsons campus at Fair Oaks and Walnut, and you know it's funny. Like 2008, I remember Parsons coming into my office and saying, we're going to rebuild and build all of this development to have housing and retail, and it'll be about 1 million square feet when it's all said and done. And, you know, a short 14 years later, here it is. So here we go. Time flies. So I guess the biggest tenet to take away from this is Dine Brands, who will be coming over from Glendale, and they will be occupying about 92,000 square feet of this site, which is great for Old Pasadena to get some people in the restaurants and on the streets again. Then moving forward, we have Lagerlof Lawyers and Whittier Trust signing new leases. Lagerlof at 199 North Lake, and Whittier Trust, a private wealth management firm, signing a 36,000 square feet lease at 177 East Colorado Boulevard. Some of you may remember that as the old AT&T building. Scratch Financial, they're located at 199 North Lake, and this is the former corporate center. Oh, I'm sorry, 199 is not corporate. Yes, it is, Scratch Financial. And they are a healthcare financing product, and they include medical, dental, and vision. And they are in Paso Royo. So a little bit more on that on the next slide. Paso Royo, they've done an extensive renovation at the corporate center. If you haven't been there, I would encourage you to go and check out their exterior, their patios, their walkways, their courtyards. It's a fantastic space. Go check it out. And they really position themselves to attract life sciences and other tenants that we'll hear about later on from the next speaker. Medical office buildings coming to Pasadena. We have the former Monty site on South Fair Oaks, a 100,000 square foot building. This is the Keck USC building, opening in 2024. Next, Huntington Hospital is constructing a 100,000 square feet building on South Fair Oaks. Their building permits are in review, opening also in 2024. 101 South Marengo Avenue, the former Bank of America building. If you haven't seen that, the Bank of America call center building, all of the panels were popped out and the windows are installed. It's a gorgeous looking building. I know they've had many tenants look through it. So far, no tenant that I'm aware of has signed a lease, but I'm sure one will come along soon. It's a great looking building.
The biggest thing that we face and the biggest challenge we face is infrastructure. And it's not only in Pasadena, it's in LA overall. We were just in an event a couple days ago. We're heavily involved with Biocom. We're heavily involved in LA Bio. You sit on a number of panels, you watch a number of panel speakers at these events, and everybody is saying the same thing. We've got to get buildings built to accommodate life science. They're traditionally a lot different than a traditional office building. But unless we get those buildings built and can accommodate these companies that continue to grow, whether they're coming out of Caltech, whether they're coming out of UCLA, whether they're going to come out of Cal State LA or USC, if we don't get it done, we're going to lose them to other cities. We've already seen in the last 2 months about 150,000 square foot of requirements that were looking heavily in LA, could not find space. They're now down in San Diego and searching in South San Francisco simultaneously to relocate to those markets instead of coming to LA and or Pasadena. So the 465 site that David mentioned, where Zencore is going to move in hopefully January. There's another parcel of land on that's a 10-acre parcel that's currently surface parking for that building. We're actually selling the building right now for the current owner. We've got a number of groups that have come up from San Diego that are life science developers that are heavily focused on that site. We've got other sites identified in the city that we think could be great potential developments as well, but we'll see how it goes. It's a matter of how quickly we can get things through the city to get them approved and get them built.
Now, one thing we're pretty well set on is incubators, although there can never be too many. We have about 25 incubators in the LA region, spanning from the South Bay out to Thousand Oaks and out east to Pasadena. Biggest major drivers of those are Alexandra Real Estate and Hatch Spaces. Hatch Spaces has 5 locations in Los Angeles. They're more of a graduator concept, so they service various scales of life science tenants, so from smaller companies, few thousand square feet, to about 20,000 square feet. Alexandria Real Estate is really determined to kind of build out that presence in Thousand Oaks. They have 3 existing buildings there, and they're building another 300,000 square feet of graduator space right adjacent, which is that number 4 right up there, so that they can accommodate for those smaller sized companies when they graduate from their incubators.
So the question is, how do elections impact the economy? Not too much. The results of the election, of course, have a longer term impact on the economy as, policies get enacted, and that certainly can be positive or negative. But generally, the elections themselves don't have too much of an impact either way. And of course, politicians of every stripe go out there and make a lot of promises and talk about policies they may or may not enact. But over time, we actually looked at this. There really just isn't a quantifiable economic impact to the elections themselves. And then even afterwards, because policies take so long to come to fruition and to be enacted, for that spending to actually hit the economy, the impacts are often drawn out over a long period of time. To give you an example, on average, federal spending takes about 10 years to make its way through the economy. And usually most of that spending is within 5 years, but it's still a long time. And of course, the pandemic was sort of, not the usual situation where you had a lot of fiscal policy hit the economy all at the same time. So for the CARES Act, for example, you had trillions of dollars kind of hit the economy. Maybe that caused some of the inflation we're seeing now, maybe not. But yeah, overall, elections not usually a big impact themselves.
So, we've seen the development in the life sciences area growing more and more. And so there are two things that are at play. One was brought up, the FAR issue, in other words, the square foot and the development issues. But in terms of infrastructure, I think we're well ahead of the game in terms of communication services and infrastructure, Wi-Fi, all of the things that we've invested in the past. The biggest challenge is going to be the development issue. And we've seen that in the South Fair Oaks discussion, the South Fair Oaks specific plan discussion. And I suspect that you'll see more and more of that as we look at East Pasadena as well and look at the developable space for this type of development. So I would say to you that the city's aware of it. We've actually encouraged the development of life sciences. We've looked at what's happened at Avery Dennison. We're excited about that. One of the other projects that wasn't really touched on is the development of the KEC projects on South Fair Oaks. So I believe that there are three different sectors of our city. It's East Pasadena, it's over on the Walnut Corridor, as well as South Fair Oaks, where we're looking very closely at, and South Fair Oaks, yeah, where we're looking very closely at encouraging more and more investment in life sciences.